Hi, I'm Jean-Baptiste Vautier, co-founder of the Vautier Family Office, board member of many companies that include Pershing Square, Howard Hughes, and our company guest today. I'm also a private investor. Today on Global Lens Macro to Micro, I'm sitting down with the inspirational mind behind Ditto, groundbreaking nutrient supplement that's designed to reduce menstrual cycle symptoms. And it's also one of my portfolio companies, and I'm very proud to be invested in. So please join me welcoming PhD nutrition scientist Alice van der Schoot. Alice, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
Of course. And you're going to start by telling us everything about Ditto, which is, this amazing startup, which is not even 1 year old. But tell us about, what led you to create it and what it's about.
Okay, so my journey as a researcher, I've been a researcher for around 10 years now, and I started out in neuroscience. So that was my first degree before moving into nutrition science, where I'm now doing a PhD. And as a researcher, I was incredibly frustrated because I realized, yes, women's health is under-researched, but there's actually more research than people think. It's just sat in academic journals. And the findings, there's these amazing findings that don't actually get translated into meaningful solutions. And for me, the menstrual cycle space, conditions such as PMS, PMDD, really severe period pain that people struggle with. We understand the biology of this much more now, around how pain signals are processed, how neurotransmitters change to affect our mood. And we have really strong evidence showing that specific nutrients, that's me combining my two areas with the neuroscience and nutrition, they can target these mechanisms and really significantly reduce both the physical and psychological challenges that are tied to the menstrual cycle. And what's also frustrating is we have almost 2 billion women in the world who menstruate. 90% of them are suffering with these symptoms, yet the NHS website is still saying use a hot water bottle, get plenty of sleep, massage your tummy. And these are not targeted, they're very vague, and they're also reactive. So you already have the symptoms by the time you reach for a hot water bottle. Whereas nutrition can be used in a way that actually prevents the impact of these symptoms in the first place. So at Ditto, we used all of this research and developed a clinically studied supplement for PMS, PMDD, and period pain.
So let's focus on the product for a while. So
Yeah.
walk us through the sort of the early days of creating, testing the supplement and getting it to the point where it is today in terms of efficacy.
Yeah, so this is so interesting. We started out by doing over 100 hours of interviews to understand people's experiences and how we could use this research to create something for them. And we knew there was an unmet need, but actually learning the extent of this unmet need was pretty shocking. We had one woman was using a Theragun on her abdomen for her period pain. We have people taking time off work every month, and we also got the stat that 75% were not satisfied with the current solution. So that showed us we really, really need to bring this to people. And then as a nutrition scientist, to create the formula of this supplement that we brought out, I basically reviewed all the studies that exist giving nutrients or extracts to populations suffering with these conditions, showed these really significant effects. I chose 8 nutrients and 2 extracts with the strongest evidence that addresses the full spectrum of the symptoms. And then as a nutrition scientist, I also thought quite a lot about how to deliver the nutrients in a particular way. So Ditto has a biotechnology that really helps the absorption of the nutrients as well. And then ultimately, we have all these studies, the formulation, the studies on the individual ingredients, but we then, at the final stage, we conducted our own independent clinical trial on Ditto put together in its formulation rather than just relying on the studies for the individual ingredients. And that shows us that it really does work, it can be trusted, and we got some amazing results from that clinical trial. So we went all the way through from the start to the finish. It was a great journey.
Can we give a bit like a few KPIs, be a bit more specific about how they intended to be used, like for potential users that listen to this, how they've performed, if we can give a high level numbers.
Yeah, so how they're intended to be used, it's a daily supplement. That's really important. The proactive approach is what makes it so effective. The nutrients take a few weeks to build up in the system. So you'll notice small shifts in those first few weeks, but the really significant effects based on all of the studies of the individual nutrients and our clinical trial shows that the most significant, meaningful effects come in month 2 and then build even more more in month 3. So that daily consistency is really important because you end up then being able to make your body and brain more resilient to the effects of the hormonal changes and prevent the symptoms altogether a lot of the time, or just significantly reduce their impact in the first place. And yeah, that's basically the key points with Ditto. And we've had amazing results. Our clinical trial, 88% had a reduction in the overall severity of their symptoms by cycle 3. 91% had reduced period cramps. 88% had reduced mood changes. It reduced 13 symptoms significantly. And then our customer feedback has been incredible. We have one of our most common quotes on our Trustpilot reviews are life-changing, life-altering. And that really shows how impactful it is. And often saying, like, my period creeped up on me, I didn't realise it was coming. We had one person saying it was the first time in 15 years that she didn't have to use painkillers, which was
Wow.
really incredible as well.
That's you love reading those. I mean, I have to say,
Yeah.
through these questions, you sort of summarized what drew me to Ditto, because we met with your co-founder, and you sort of explained to me in a very convincing way what you said. Like, the unmet needs, like the size of the market is just gigantic, and if you just pay a bit attention to your wife or I have daughters as well, that the proportion is pretty high out there. But I didn't expect it was that big in terms of the percentage of the population that does suffer from these pains. And then indeed, there is absolutely no real offering out there, no solution. And the combination of your talents, experience, science, with the marketing genius of your partner, I felt this was the great combination, very powerful combination. I have to say, since the start, you've been beating every milestone every month, be it in terms of growth, revenues, you name it. We won't give too many numbers on this podcast, but it's been very impressive and far above what we expected, even in the rosier scenario. So it's a very impressive growth, and I'm sure there's going to be other solutions at some point. But the market is so vast, and the product is so life changing, as you said, and well marketed and in the right delivery, that I think Ditto has a big avenue ahead of it. Now, talking about the market, so the women's health market is pretty vast. As you said in the introduction, menstrual health has always been underserved by science, and not for the lack, as you rightly said, of some findings, but like science has sort of, an industry has stayed away. So what's the biggest disconnect you see between the current medical understanding and the solutions available to women? Like, if we were to, and we discussed that at our first board a week ago, and how Ditto could close that gap.
Yeah, so the medical understanding is honestly quite dire. You have women constantly being dismissed with phrases such as, we all go through this, it's normal, it's just your period, when they go into a healthcare setting with really valid concerns. With conditions like PMDD, for example, that affects 1 in 20 women, many of these women are waiting over 10 years for a diagnosis because both the general public and a lot of healthcare practitioners in the medical setting aren't actually aware of what it is, or they don't know how to diagnose it properly. Mm-hmm. So, for example, with PMDD, you go with really extreme mood changes that are cyclical, but it can often be misdiagnosed as bipolar because a lot of doctors don't know that you have to do daily tracking for at least 2 menstrual cycles to actually know that it's cyclical. And the default option at the moment is hormonal treatment to stop the cycle, rather than addressing the specific mechanisms that are causing the symptoms. And for many women, that can come along with a whole host of other side effects. So it's almost like a trade-off of the symptoms you're getting versus the side effects of hormonal treatment. And Ditto addresses that gap in 2 ways. Firstly, we're very big on science communication. So through our social media, we do massive amounts to share research papers, educate women about what's actually going on in their bodies. They're now feeling validated in their experiences, and then this also gives them information to go to doctors and advocate for themselves better. And secondly, then our supplement also provides a targeted solution that addresses the actual mechanisms going on behind their pain and their mood changes to significantly reduce the symptoms without coming along with the whole host of side effects.
That's fascinating. Fascinating in a negative sense, how it's not just finding the right product and the right solutions, but it's also, in a way, empowering women to be able to talk about actual pain and describe it and and being acknowledged in these things. It's sort of, I mean, for me, it's hopefully the world is changing, but it amazes me. Now, turning to the consumers themselves. So again, what's the biggest challenge in terms of educating them? It's a complex, science-backed, proactive, it's daily, as you said, solution compared to, the usual either don't even pay attention to it, or we all go through what you said, we all go through this, or, just doing what the NHS says, or using pain relief products. How do you manage to empower them, educate them, make them aware that there's another way?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the first point that comes to my mind is the fact that the word science backed is now thrown around quite a lot in this world when things aren't actually truly science backed. And with scientists and experts on our team, we've really built a community and a brand that is very science led. And at first we were thinking, everyone's calling themselves science backed. How will people know that we really are science backed? And it turns out people do realize, and they do see from the information that we share that we can be trusted and our solution can be trusted. So that scientific rigor and the time and effort that we put into getting this information for people really makes a difference there. And then also in terms of like people understanding this kind of solution versus an instant painkiller, for example, and that it takes some time to build up and isn't instant. I think a customer review we had recently really sums up the challenge we have here perfectly. She was like, honestly, in the first month I was so skeptical. On month 2, I realized, hang on, something's different here. And month 3, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And by that time, she had prevented the impact of her symptoms altogether and now has this lasting effect. Whereas with a painkiller, you take it when your symptoms are already impacting you, already affecting your quality of life. And then the effect also then wears off in a few hours. Whereas Ditto, it's this much more meaningful change. And the challenge we have is getting people to stick with it past that first month when there's, for a lot of people, some people really do actually feel the effects in the first month, but for a lot of people, it's a small shift. But once they get past that and get to month 3, that's when there's such a significant difference. And we constantly educate our customers about that 3-month journey. And we often use our clinical trial results to sort of display that in an understandable way as well.
That makes sense. You brought up a very interesting point, which is, as you said, there's a lot of science-backed claims out there, and there might even be science washing, or I don't know what to call it, but people trying to hide behind science when there's not necessarily science. Now, there's the other side of this equation, which is how do you simplify the science for marketing purposes for people that don't have your PhDs and your knowledge, while maintaining the scientific integrity and authority that the brand is built upon.
Yeah, so we really focus on driving key messages, so clinically backed, so you can trust it. That clinical backing really shows that there's science behind it. It targets all of your symptoms, not just pain. And we also make the conversation in our marketing very cool and approachable. So I think often we think that science can be boring and inaccessible, but you can actually make it the opposite. You can make it quite exciting and accessible. So we can talk about neurotransmitters, pain-causing chemicals in a way that actually makes sense and feels relevant to people's lives. So whenever we communicate a message, we always think, what is actually relevant to their lived experience and how can we connect it to their lived experience to make it understandable for them? And yeah, we just constantly drive very similar messaging. And then once people are interested, that they can then go to all of our resources that we have on our website and through our social media as well to learn much more if they want to.
Makes sense. Let's look ahead now. Let's turn to the future. I mean, there's been a lot happening in less than a year. Not only a very successful launch and a very impressive growth month over month, but also some venture capital money coming in at a much earlier stage than we all anticipated. And I say that in a very positive way, which is helping accelerating further. And more globally, there's more and more investment in femtech. I mean, it's a recent trend, but you can see that there's a trend there. Where do you see Ditto? I was going to say in 5 years, maybe 5 years is too long, but in the next few years, is the vision to become foundational health solution for the whole menstrual journey, for PMS, PMDD, for perimenopause, what about endometriosis beyond? Like, can you elaborate a bit on the vision?
Yeah, so we'll very much be sticking to menstrual health because it's such a complex area that affects almost 2 billion women, and it's very underserved, and it deserves so much time and all of our resources for truly effective targeted solutions. There's so much more that needs to be developed in this space alone. So we have PMS, PMDD, endometriosis, and adenomyosis, PCOS. There's so many conditions that are really underserved, and we want to really focus in on this, give them the solutions they deserve for such complex conditions, and stick with that rather than moving beyond into menopause, for example.
That makes sense. And in terms of, either from an investor perspective or from a geographic perspective, you're disrupting an enormous market. You have a highly defensible product. You're very, as you just explained, very focused, very targeted in your strategy. But is it a global vision? What's the upcoming plans and projects, the ones you can share on this podcast?
Yeah, so we definitely want to be reaching more areas. 100%. We want to make this as accessible to help as many people as possible. And we also want to, like, at the moment, there's not a place where, like, women don't know where to turn to when they have their menstrual health problems. There's nobody out there other than what we're growing at the moment who provide both expert information and targeted solutions in one place. So we want to become that. We want to grow through multiple avenues. For example, a lot of people now are turning to TikTok for their health information much more than Google, for example. It's a very specific search you can do and find out so much more often. And we really want to grow in these places, have a bigger presence on there, and become that touch point where people come for accessible information and also the evidence-based solutions.
That makes total sense. Very, very exciting
Yeah.
journey ahead. Alice, thank you for joining for this conversation today. It was, as always, both insightful and inspiring. Congratulations on the this first few months. It's been an extraordinary journey. I feel privileged to be part of this journey alongside you and Adam. I hope I can continue to help you and support you. And I always enjoy getting to sit down with founders of companies I invest in, talk about how business is going, their plans for the future. And I really believe Ditto is changing already the women's health landscape, and I'm very proud to be part of this and to be invested with you guys. So thank you again, Alice. It's been great. And if you found value in this conversation, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for more conversations like this. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.